listening to Keep On Talkin' Live. I'm Tom Kirk, and as we do each week, we gather here around a counter of knowledge over the phone. Since the truck stops have changed a lot over the last few years with the pandemic and other reasons, drivers don't have that opportunity to sit, talk, exchange ideas, stories, tall tales, and other things the way we used to. And so each week we gather here around our virtual counter of knowledge and have some conversations about some of the latest stuff that is going on in trucking, in the trucking industry. So anyways, tonight's topic, we have kind of, I think, what's going to be an interesting one. Back in September, Trucking Moves America Forward have commissioned a study back in September to measure the impact of the awareness and education campaign among America's surveys. Really what they were trying to find out is what is the public's impressions of truck drivers, and how does that impact us in a lot of other ways. And tonight, really what I want to kind of discuss is some of the findings they found in this poll, but also talk to drivers a little bit. Are you kind of seeing where the public is maybe viewing us better? And when I say the public, I mean the general public. I'm not talking necessarily shippers, receivers, truck stops, things of that nature. But are you seeing an improvement in how people are looking at us? And if you're not, that's fine. I would like to hear that too. But also at the same token, if the public really is viewing us more favorably, how can we maybe leverage that into better treatment at shippers or receivers, truck stops, things of that nature? They always say that you should strike while the iron's hot. Well, if the iron's hot, what can we do to maybe improve some of the things that bother us in the industry? So that's really what tonight's conversation is going to be about. So if you'd like to join that conversation tonight, you can do so by calling on in at 702-862-8620. That's did I get that number right? I think I got that right there. Let me go and check my own post. This is one of those evenings where my brain, for whatever reason, has checked out for a couple of moments. But hopefully it will check back in here. But we're going to get the conversation started while I double-check that number and make sure I got it right. But if you're listening in on that tncradio.live app, just press that Call Us button and that'll connect you right to us. So anyways, we've got Jerry, Christine, and I believe it's Lisa and Lee Schmidt on the lines tonight. Christine, I know we haven't heard from you for a little bit, so let's start off with you. How's things going with you, and what are some of your thoughts as to how the public is viewing us?
Doing well, thank you. You know what? I don't really get the that outward public type thing. I get a lot of oh, you drive? Why? Yeah, what made you do it? I don't get that thanks for driving type thing. I don't get that acknowledgement. I just get why. That kind of thing.
And I think go ahead.
Receptive. I guess receptive. I don't know. Never anything else. I'm not sure why. So, and I didn't see the study or the survey. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Well,
I understand, and I don't know if everybody has. So I'm going to kind of go through some of their key findings or their key points here real quick. So in 2019, roughly 67% of the trucking industry was viewed in a positive manner versus 87% in 2022. So if you look at it, and I don't have all the exact, actually I do have the numbers I'm looking for right here. Actually, we'll get that in a second. The role in America's let's start off with this again. The industry perception. Back in 2022, we had an 87% versus 2019 of 67%, and we were outscoring both the railroad and the airline industries in terms of public perception. For the role in America's economy, it stayed the same from 2019 to 2022, 97% versus 97%. where most Americans continue to believe that trucking industry plays a very important role in the economy. And the other thing, which is an improvement, maybe not as much as we'd like to see, safety record, 2019 versus 2022, 70% in 2019 versus 72% in 22 think that the industry safety record is excellent or good. And I think the one thing that everybody would like to know, who were they asking this of? They asked 1,000 people who were likely voters to do an online survey, and these where the respondents were on that. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing tonight?
We're here. Good. We're doing good.
Not a problem. So anyways, what are some of your thoughts on this? I know you and Lee have looked at the study a little bit. What are some of your thoughts?
Honestly, the reason that the numbers went up is because we didn't take care of them in the pandemic. I know Christine said she doesn't get the thank you attitude. We do sometimes. Obviously, we were in a convoy and we got that 50 million times a day. But I think through the pandemic, people have realized that nothing's getting to their store unless it's on one of our trucks. Lee, you got a comment?
I was just going to say that because everybody has been all over social media hammering that truck drivers brought it, trucker brought it, this and that, and more bumper stickers have been on the trucks in the last couple years. That is what's causing people to see. And they're realizing through the pandemic that, there was a little bit of a bluff in the way things were distributed, and everybody was blaming the truck drivers. Well, through that, they've realized, hey, we are still bringing things, so it put us in a better perception.
And I think that is true. I think a lot of it was, during the pandemic, you had people, kids raising money to give us food or passing out sandwiches, cookies, etc., and standing on the overpasses. In fact, I just saw somebody doing that here the other day, standing on the overpass with the American flag, waving at everybody, going underneath again. But one of the things that I kind of didn't realize until I stopped to think about it here just the other day is I'm starting to get more people, or not more, but periodically I'll just get a random person I'm in a conversation that when they find out I drive truck, they're saying, hey, thank you for driving truck. If you didn't bring it, these taglines that we've heard for years, if you use it, a truck brings it. And which is kind of nice to hear that people are doing some recognition of us. But like I said, there too many drivers that I'm talking to. It seems as if they're not getting the love in the same way that some of us are, which number one is a shame. But number two is something we need to do here. And I need to go and give that phone number again because I messed it up. It's 706 862-8620. That is 706-862-8620. If you want to be part of the conversation tonight, come on in and join us. We got plenty of room for you here at the counter. Hey, Jerry, how have you been, my friend? We've got just a minute or two before we've got to take a break. So why don't you give us some quick opening thoughts here?
Well, obviously I came from a way different generation. But, I can remember we were knights of the highway. I can remember just a young fellow. We dressed very well for truck drivers. Dry clean uniforms, press shirts, a lot of it, not all of it. I can remember any number of times on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the Ohio Turnpike, especially summertime, motorists would just come up and start talking to you. They weren't afraid of us. The industry itself, from senior management down among the larger industries, took a lot of pride in their drivers, too. They provided the uniforms. They provided a motel room every day, places where we could stay clean, groomed, this, that, and the other thing. You were evaluated for that when you went to work. Now, obviously, don't think we'll ever see that again. Notice, the media the media today, we see that politics can either make you or break you. And I believe it is right during the pandemic, the media, and I'm going to add this in too, especially the Canadian convoys. Ours got started a little late. We didn't see the euphoria that they did, like the drivers coming across Saskatchewan, places where whole towns were out flying the flags. And it was a very hard patriotic stand they took in Ottawa, facing down that type of government, so on and so forth. And the media kind of portrayed that as positive.
Yep.
And they portrayed it negative.
Hey, Jerry, we got to take a quick break here, so we're going to come back with more on that, because I know I've got some thoughts on that, having seen some of the convoys here in the U.S., and I'm sure Lisa and Lee do as well. We'll be back here with more if you want to take part in that conversation tonight. It's 706-862-8620. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On the show, Ron interviews guests to help inform professional drivers just like you about the importance of things like human trafficking to sex addiction to how to overcome the impossible odds on the way to success. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
This blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 4 things to consider before becoming a hazmat tanker driver. The demand for truck drivers is higher than ever. There are many different types of truck driving jobs. Whether you're a new driver or if you already have a couple of years' experience, it's never a bad idea to get new skills and endorsements. Hazmat tanker jobs are one of the many truck driving jobs. If you're considering becoming a hazmat tanker truck driver, here's some things you should know. What is a hazmat tanker? Hazmat truck drivers haul, deliver, and dispose of hazardous materials. Hazardous material can include things like gases, explosives, corrosive chemicals, poisons, and radioactive materials. Hazmat tanker drivers are not limited to hauling only hazardous material. They can also drive a non-hazardous tanker. Have the right requirements. Becoming a certified hazmat tanker driver will require you to add specific endorsements to your already existing CDL. You'll have to undergo training that is specifically designed for transporting and handling hazardous materials. After obtaining your CDL, you'll have to go through a background check and complete the application requirements. The application requires ID proof of being at least 21 years old, proof of citizenship or legal residence, a medical exam and eye exam. You must pass the hazmat knowledge test too. It's more stressful. Regardless of what you're hauling, being a truck driver is a stressful job. Safety is a top priority for truck drivers, especially for hazmat tanker drivers. Hauling hazardous material means that accidents or spills are much more severe. Hazmat tanker drivers are under much more stress and caution than drivers that haul non-hazardous material. Drivers need to be extra careful and need to plan their routes before driving. It requires a lot of skill. Truck driving is a difficult career and it's not for everyone. Being a truck driver already requires a lot of skill. For hazmat tanker drivers, there are specific skills that you'll need in order to be successful. Aside from the technical skills, hazmat tankers should also have personal skills. Some personal skills include being punctual, detail-oriented, and patient. These skills will make you a better driver in the long run. You make more money. Hazmat tanker drivers make more money on average. This is because more experience and skills required to haul hazardous loads. According to Salary.com, the average salary for a hazmat tanker driver in the United States is just over $63,000 a year, but the average salary range falls between $55,000 and $72,000 a year. Salary varies from education, certification, experiences, and additional skills. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.com.
Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. As a professional driver, you are always being told about the importance of physical fitness, your health. But But what about mental fitness? On the show each week, we take on a new topic, from loneliness to the power of gratitude to how to build strong relationships, all from the perspective of a driver's life. It's every Monday on TNC Radio Live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Building Strong Minds.
And we're back here on Keep On Talking Live. I'm Tom Kirk, and we're gathered around the counter of knowledge tonight. We've got 4 drivers with us, actually technically 5. We got Lee and Lisa Schmidt in here tonight, Jerry Fritz, Christine Gray, and Bruce Richards, all around the counter of knowledge. But we still have room for you at 706-862-8620. We're talking tonight about a recent survey that the Trucking Moves America Forward Foundation had commissioned about truck drivers, and some of our thoughts. Are we seeing a difference maybe in how people are treating us? And by that I mean the general public, not necessarily the industry itself. And if we are seeing some improvements, what are some of the things that maybe we can do as drivers, but also as the people who support us, to maybe get better treatment for us all across the board? Some of the things that came out in this survey, that truck drivers are essential and professional. America's overwhelmingly consider truck drivers to be essential to the country's economy at 96%, and that they're professionals at 85%. One of the things that just before we went to break, Jerry brought up that the convoys, particularly up in Canada, raised a lot of awareness, both in the U.S. and Canada, of some of the roles that truck drivers did near the end of the pandemic, and that he didn't necessarily know if we got some of the same boost where communities came together. I know I was in Joplin on I-40 when the convoy came through that day, and it was amazing. Outside of I'll actually go so far as this. I've been at the Joplin for their truck show and the truck convoy that they have there when the Guilty by Association does their show. And there's a lot of people there. There easily had to be 2 to 3 times the number of people all along the interstate, the overpasses, just waving and things like that. And then randomly over my travels over the next several days, as I would kind of pass by some of the convoy routes, I would see similar responses. So I think it was there. I just don't know if it was covered by the media as well. Lee and Lisa, I know you were with the convoy some. What are some of your thoughts on that? Jerry had made a great point. The media can make you, the media can break you. And while they did a lot of decent things here to truck drivers during the pandemic, I think maybe they missed the boat with the convoy.
My perception would be the media that is nationwide did a poor job of it and painted us as terrorists, basically. The local medias in any town we stopped welcomed us with open arms. Your small medias, the small papers, loved us, wrote stories, wanted to know why we were doing it, and were backing everything we were doing. And it didn't matter what town we joined them in New Mexico. We were with it for 24 days. If you didn't cry 10 times a day, you just couldn't feel all the patriotism that the American public was showing toward us. It was just phenomenal. That was not portrayed on any media. It was portrayed by most of us that were in the convoy that tried to show it. But I think a lot of it came across to people that followed social media, but not general news.
And I'd have to say with that, I think from a lot of the things that I saw, I don't think for the most part the national media, other than a story or two, I don't really remember much coverage in them of this. Jerry, I know you kind of brought some of this up, based on some of my personal experiences as well as that of Lee and Lisa, and I'm not sure down around the Memphis area how much you guys saw of this. What are some of your thoughts to that? And definitely I think you're right. The media can play a major role in the public's perception.
Well, let's face it, the national media is 3/4 kind of left wing. And anything that looked like true from the heart, grassroots, fundamental patriotism is a threat to their ideology. And also, in between the Canadian convoys and what happened down here. Now, remember, I'm home all the time now. I can't tell you what it was, but if we think about it, there was something else that happened that actually almost appropriately had the media looking hard at something else was going on at that time. And the wife and I both said, uh-oh, because that competed, almost came first ahead of the convoys. That was just a misfortune, ahead of the American convoys. There was something going on in a period of time there that was suddenly disruptive and kind of needed media attention kind of in a different way. So if you look at the amount of time they have to push the news out, that came before the convoys. So that was kind of a misfortune. But just like the other gentleman was just saying, yeah, you know, the local people flying the American flags, let's face it, you know, there's politics involved here. And that was seen as right-wing, the same. Look how badly those people are being prosecuted and everything in Canada now as a result of doing that. It was kind of very political. And when the left-wing media, which is 3/4, let's break it into 4 cable channels. So 3 out of those 4, that's seen as, you know, redneck, white supremacy, hillbilly, white trash. That's what Canada called it, trashy type people, standing up and speaking out, which you're not supposed to do because you're not
exactly
you're not part of the elite.
Yep, and I think,
add a point to that.
Sure, you can jump on in there, Lee.
I don't know if you were in the convoy, but when we were there, our biggest point we were trying to make to people is we're not political. This is not a Trump movement. This was not a Biden movement. This was an American movement. If you love your country, and that's what we, as 99% of the drivers that I talked to that were in it, were trying to portray to the four-wheelers, is this is for your country. This is for the love of country. And we tried to not get political. We all know which way the majority of the trucking industry leans, but we tried to stay neutral.
And I think that let me jump in here real quick, Jerry. I think that's something that's important because I know one of the things we try to do here on this show as well as at the station, on a lot of our programming, we try not to dig too much into politics, into left wing, right wing, because it sooner or later people start yelling at each other and they stop listening and feelings get hurt. And really where we focus more on in terms of politics is trucking. What matters to trucking? It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat, Republican, Biden, Trump, fill in the blank with any politician you want. Our main focus is the drivers, what's good for the drivers, because usually if it's good for trucking, it's going to, and I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use it, it's going to trickle down to the rest of the public as well, because you have to look at it from that perspective that, hey, if it's good for us, it's going to be good for the rest of the economy. If you have better roads, better bridges, if drivers are getting paid well, that means there's going to be, eventually more money to go around for other things as well. So there's a lot of factors in that. And that's why our focus tries to be much more on the pro driver side and stop getting away from the name calling of, this thing or that thing. Hey, Jerry, we have just about a minute before we need to go to break. Did you have something you want to kind of finish up there before we head to break?
You're absolutely right on all that, as everyone is here. We all know it was an American thing. But many years ago, my father organized dairy farmers in 3 states. Really organized them well. It got to be a big movement. I learned at 5 years old, when the media would come to interview him, by the time it went into print, it carried the message of what the media wanted to promote. And that's what happened here, especially if you call all American. because you can't ignore the politics here. There is kind of a left media that sees all American, excuse me, I'm going to be tough, white supremacists and insurrectionists and all that kind of stuff, even though we aren't. But that's not the narrative the media wants to show.
And hey, I hate to cut you off here, Jerry, but we've got to go to a break. We'll be back with more right after this. If you want to take part of tonight's conversation, that is going to be 706-862-8620, 706-862-8620. We'll be more right after this.
TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Do you like superheroes? I kind of like superheroes, I admit it. But it seems that most of us in our country do, because what is it now? About 80% of the American movies are either about Spider-Man or Batman, or Spider-Man comes home, or the Batman comes home, or something like that. But we have an obsession with the superhero. So I've been thinking about them, and I've been watching how they perform. And I realize that they all seem to have one thing in common. They're like mild-mannered newspaper guys or shoe salesmen like Underdog used to be. And then they become something incredible, but not till after they make the change into their outfit, whatever that outfit is. Something usually rather sexy and stunning and tights. But I noticed that they put on their outfits and then they conquer the world. And then they take their outfits off and then they return to a normal person. I think that's what we have to do as professional people, or as hardworking people, or as blue-collar people, or whatever it is we do. We need to take that superhero costume off in the parking lot and then come home and be that person again for our family. Too many times what we have is the superhero takes their issues home and has sleepless nights and high stress and an inability to reconnect with family and any other part of their life because they don't have the ability to detach and to leave it behind when they take the uniform off. Try this. Try putting on your uniform, your suit, your outfit, your coat, whatever it is, and then go into your superhero mode, but then take that off at the end of the day and become mom, become daddy, become whoever it is you need to be, because those people need you just as much or more than the others that you're the superhero for.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network Show with Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
And we're back here on Keep On Talkin' Live. I'm Tom Kirk, and we're gathered around the counter of knowledge as we do each week, where the conversation is hot. And tonight, I think the conversation is getting pretty lively on a bunch of topics as we do talk about the public's perception of truck drivers and some of the changes we're seeing, and maybe some of the things that we as drivers can do to try and leverage things moving forwards. Hey, Bruce, what are some of your thoughts? We haven't come yet to you this evening.
I don't want to go down a political trail, and I'm not going to try to. But back when the pandemic hit, okay, the public came out in droves and praised the truck drivers. So much where they were actually making brown bag lunches and going to truck stops and going to rest areas and giving them to us because they were thankful we were still out there doing what we always do, keeping this country going. And then within a matter of 2 weeks, truck drivers are trying to stay safe, stay away from conflict. And we went from heroes to zero in a matter of days because we were trying to be safe and get away from conflict. And I'm talking about the riots. Nobody knows.
I think that's true because I know that was almost every driver that I know, and if anybody here disagrees with me, please feel free to jump in. We were all concerned about our safety, and the situation was tragic. There was mistakes made on a lot of people's parts on all sides through that. But at the end of the day, drivers were doing the best that they could and were being put into positions that we never should have been put into in the first place. And I think that's a perfect example of, and there's an old saying that we talk about sometimes, behind the scenes when we're like working on the morning news or things like that. If it bleeds, it leads. If it's a human interest story, if it's cute, if it's cuddly, very few people at the end of the day want that. They want the conflict. They want the drama. And, I think makes Jerry's point perfectly, that it can make or break you. And that the perception is, they say, is often reality. So if the media or somebody perceives you as being this and can shape everybody else's perception of that, next thing you know, hey, we're all being viewed in that way, kind of negatively. So that definitely is a problem. Christine, I'm going to come to you here for a quick second. Do you have any thoughts on this? And then we've got some kind of breaking news that I'm going to get to here in just a second that actually kind of pertains to some of what we're talking about tonight.
Bruce is absolutely right. It's the only time when we went from, being heroes to being zeros. The only time I was actually in my career, I just celebrated 27 years behind the wheel on the 6th, that I was ever fearful for my life. And I haul some nasty stuff.
And I can't argue with that at all.
I remember sitting in Dallas listening to percussion grenades going off during the riots, thinking, man, that's the first time in my career I've ever been that close. Do I go home? Do I stay out here? That's the first time. And it's like, why are you still out here? It's the only time I've ever questioned my career.
And the thing is, and I want to take... I'm going to take a quick unofficial survey here of all the drivers that are on the call tonight. When things were getting very serious concerning driver safety out here, how many of you were seriously considering that maybe it's time to come off the road for a period of days, weeks, or longer? I know the thought crossed my mind. What about everybody else? Jerry, we'll do you first.
Not so much as completely coming off the road, but Portland, Oregon is one of my target markets. I started refusing all those at Portland. Even my wife says, I don't want to hear you going to Portland, Oregon. So when I was getting calls on those, it's no more Portland.
Okay, that there. Hey, Bruce, what about you?
Because of that.
No, I thought about it, but I said, I've always had this feeling that we are the boots on the ground in America, and I wasn't about to let somebody down, the country down, by going home. And I just did what I had to do and paid attention to where I was going and watched where I was going and stopped before I had to go through there or whatever. But I wasn't going to go home because of it.
And that's definitely fair. And I know partly, after being a couple of days, I realized, hey, if you watch the news, you try to avoid after dark or certain places, you could work your way around most of the hot spots, for lack of a better term. But still, it was concerning because sometimes you didn't know where they would pop up. Lee and Lisa, what were some of your thoughts about this?
When the pandemic first hit, our first trip was into Seattle, where it was the exact first hot spot for the pandemic. We ended up going there, but we got help from another driver. They met us at a truck stop and got us sanitizers and masks. But we ended up going home at some point during the pandemic because we were sick and tired of not getting served food, restrooms, showers, laundry. It wasn't because we were afraid of the riots. We knew not to go to Portland, St. Louis, some of them other cities, Minneapolis. We didn't go to those cities when that first started hitting. We started turning down all loads to there. But we did come home for, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks, because as my husband eloquently puts it, I wanted an egg on a glass plate, a fresh egg, and with metal silverware.
Oh, ain't
that's why we ended up coming.
Well, okay, I'm another quick informal survey since we're here at the Counter of Knowledge today. And Flo, it's not that we're insulting your service or anything. Oh, who am I kidding? Yes, we are. Is it just me, or is it trying to find food now in some ways almost becoming worse than it was during the pandemic?
Yes.
Particularly if you're a night driver. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everything closes at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Don't try to get fresh food at 8:01 because you'll get the pizza that's in the warming light for 8 hours. And we walked in at 8:05 to a place one night, and my hubby got kind of mad at me because the food was in the light and I wouldn't eat it. And I looked at the people standing there. I go, "You gonna eat that? Well, how would you expect us to?"
Yeah.
And it's like, you walk around this convenience store looking for something to eat, and you're just like, oh my God.
The one thing I'm going to ask everybody, and feel free not to answer this question, I'll throw myself under the bus. Who else put on the COVID-20? And by that, I mean the 20 pounds from eating the potato chips and the roller grill.
No.
I cooked in the truck. I'm sorry.
Well, and the thing is I used to, but with the way the company we drive for now with Team, the schedule that we did a lot of times, driving down,
you couldn't.
It wasn't practical. So we did a lot of microwave rice meals and things like that. And over the course of a year or so, my waistline shows a difference, and not necessarily in a good way. Lisa, you were getting ready to say something?
We cook in our food quite a bit too, but we did oversized and open deck, and some of those days you just didn't feel like cooking at the end of the day.
Oh, understandable.
And so, you go in and try and find food.
Well, and I think that's very true. So anyways, we're going to take a quick break here before we come up with our last and final segment. You're listening to Keep On Talkin' Live, and we're here around the Counter of Knowledge talking about the recent survey from Trucking Moves America Forward about some of the public's perceptions about truck drivers and how they've changed from previous years. And I think most everybody's agreeing that by and large it is better. So anyways, everybody, we'll be right back here after these messages. Stay tuned.
TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation
Finding
station.
a safe place to park your rig at night can be a challenge on the road. The Truckers Network, a membership resource site for trucking companies, company drivers, and owner-operators, proudly partners with Truck Park to offer safe and secure overnight truck parking to all Truckers Network members. Truck Park is the digital truck parking leader and America's fastest-growing truck parking service. The Truckers Network exists to link truck drivers with the best quality trucking products and services the industry has to offer. Finding safe overnight parking is crucial for truck drivers, and many drivers struggle with finding available parking spots. The limited parking availability causes drivers to lose sleep, which poses a safety risk to others on the road. Safe parking is valuable for drivers and the cargo they're transporting. With this partnership, Truckers Network members will have access to a discount code and be able to reserve parking spots in real time along their truck route at a reduced price. Truck Park gives drivers access to parking locations across most of the United States. Simply enter the city and state to view available parking spaces nearest a pickup or delivery point, then pay to reserve. Parking rates vary at each location, with some rates as low as $10. Truck Park is a values-based company that empowers truck drivers while providing a safe and unmatched experience. The company offers a quick way to find and reserve parking spots throughout the U.S. Truck drivers have access to Truck Park's free mobile app to easily begin reserving parking spots based on their truck route. About the Truckers Network. The Truckers Network exists to link truckers and trucking businesses throughout the United States. The company's mission is to make the life of a truck driver easier by connecting drivers to the highest quality trucking products and services to keep their trucks on the road.
I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on tncradio.live.
And we're back on Keep On Talkin' Live. I'm Tom Kirk, and we're gathered here at the Counter of Knowledge, wrapping up things for another week. We've been talking about the survey that Trucking Moves America Forward did, and their perceptions, or the public's perceptions of drivers, and a few things that are going on in the industry and there, for over the last few years. And one of the things that we were talking about during the break that I think is kind of interesting is that there is a perception, at least the way the question was asked, that 78% of the public strongly agree that truck drivers make a fair living or a fair wage. So the first thing that I'm going to kind of ask everybody here is, what's a fair living and what's a fair wage? I would really kind of like to have an answer to that question. And I think that is a good question. And I think going back to when I first started in trucking, there was the perception by a lot of people in my neighborhood that I was rich because I was a truck driver. And dang, there's some days that I wish I could make a jam sandwich. I wish I had the two pieces of bread so I could jam them together for a sandwich. And I think that's something that a lot of drivers have been through. Bruce, since you just spoke up there, we'll kind of come to you first, and then we'll kind of kick it back around again here in our last few minutes.
What's a fair wage? It's a hard question. Because you got all different. I mean, you got all different types of jobs within the industry.
Well, let me wait for it. Sorry, go ahead there.
Okay. No, go ahead. I was going to just say, you know what? I think the wages are very low.
You kind of got to where I was getting ready to say is, do you think the wages are adequate for drivers?
No, not at all. Because, okay, I'm a company driver. I don't pay for the fuel. I don't pay for the truck or the repairs. But I'm out here 3-4 weeks at a time. If we can't get to Walmart and we got to get stuff out of the truck stop, it's sky high. They're, for a better phrase, they're raping us because they're there and we need it.
Yep.
But what better way to make $1?
And that's true.
And it's not right.
And the sad part is, I've always complained about the prices of water, the gallons of water in truck stops for years. Well, walking into the grocery stores lately, their shelves seem almost as bare as the truck stops in regards to water, and the prices are getting to be almost as bad. So, you know, at least some of the pain's going around there on this, to, you know, a little bit to everybody. So, what are your thoughts on this, Lee and Lisa?
My thought goes a weird way. When we go out, we have a house sitter. He thinks we make money hand over fist because he follows what the media says. You know, they're seeing that drivers are getting $6, $7, $8 a mile, or a load going from Wisconsin to Texas is paying $6,000. The little thing they forget, which floored him, was, all right, I might gross that, but now I've got $3,000 in fuel or $4,000 a week in fuel just to run that truck. I blow a tire. Now my price is $1,000.
Oh yeah.
You know, they don't understand the reality of what it costs to maintain this equipment. And that they're getting this perception that it pays good for us because of Walmart's commercials. Drivers can make $90,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
We're not paid what we should be paid. How can you put a price tag on a driver staying gone from his family when you have young children? You can't put a price tag on that. Nobody can do it. This is a special breed of people that drives a truck.
And you know, I think we may have a great topic for next week, which is getting more into some of this, the wage and what is a living wage, and a few other things, because I know I missed out a lot with my son growing up, and we're just in some ways rebuilding our relationship now that he's in his late teens, getting ready to turn 20 here before too long, because it has been difficult being out and missing so much. And he's starting, I think, to understand some of what I had to give up and why I had to do it to provide for the family. We're going to kick over to you here real quick, Christine. What are some of your thoughts as we're starting to wind things down?
On a living wage, you know what? It depends. You know, I remember sitting and having that conversation with Pat Hackaday many, many times. And I'm sure Jerry Fritz remembers those conversations too. Piece wages for what we do isn't worth it. It truly isn't. 168 hours to live in a truck, we don't get paid even close to what we put into it. Doesn't make a difference, you know, what you give up, your time in the truck. You think about these people that go home every day.
Yep.
And what they make compared to what we do every day. No, not even close.
And that's definitely
Not
true.
even close.
Hey, Jerry, I'm going to kick it to you here. We've got just a couple of minutes before I need to wrap things up.
Okay.
So what are some of your thoughts here?
I think I have a very good example. I'm going to go back to 1984. Yep, it was union. But there was no shortage of drivers then. There was no retention problems either. You got to factor that in. So the top of the board, some of us were making in the early 50,000s. The bottom of the board was about 42. So I can remember the word was out. Local friend of ours right here in the neighborhood, neighbor. And I kind of knew, kind of same position my wife had. The average income back then was about $25,000 a year. And I can remember him saying, boy, I'd like to make $50,000 a year just driving a truck. Just wait a minute, you can. Instead of working one 40-hour-a-week job, you get two 40-hour-a-week jobs. You work Saturdays, you work Sunday. There's times you go to work at 9 o'clock at night and get done at 7 in the morning. So you only live on 5 or 6 hours sleep. I said to him, how many times have you gotten called to work on Christmas Day, having to go out into a blizzard to save a couple loads? How many times have you worked through holidays? How many times you worked through family occasions? I said, Saturday and Sundays. I've never had a weekend off in my life that I knew I was going to have the weekend off the previous week. How would you like to go out, leave out after Thanksgiving, you know, and turn to this kind of industry, and not get home till Easter, then have the company call you and say, hey, could you do us a favor and do this one? I said, how many times you had to do that? He said, well, I didn't know all that. I said, what do you think? We work a 40-hour week? See, when they ask people what is a fair wage, they base it on a 40-hour week job. You should have seen his eyes when I said, get 2 40-hour week jobs.
Yep.
You work Saturdays, Sundays, Christmas. And he looked, I said, that's right. I said, I've been called out on Christmas. My dad's been called out on Christmas. I said,
Jerry?
I've gotten home until 2 o'clock Christmas. Yeah. So
I've got to cut in here because we're running up against the clock. But you know what? Let's get back here next week and talk more about driver wages and what we think works and doesn't work, what's fair. I think we've got a lot of thoughts that we can share on this, and of course, everybody else is welcome to tune in and share their thoughts next week as well. But here in closing, one of the things that I do want to talk about, I just got a press release during the show tonight that today was the first meeting of the Women of Trucking Advisory Board, WOTAB. This is a group of women, truckers, executives, a whole bunch of other things from the trucking industry, where they're looking at a whole bunch of different issues in trucking as a whole, but more specifically on issues as it pertains to female drivers and some of the concerns that they have on a variety of issues. So this, I think, kind of does tie in nicely to some of what we're talking about, because they're going to be looking from at least their perspective, from where they come from, on some of these issues that does impact the image of the drivers and indirectly the perception that the public has towards us. So I'm going to be kind of interested to follow what comes out of this. You know, there's all kinds of jokes about committees in Washington and things like that. But I'm going to be following this just to see what, if anything, that they can do to help improve trucking and as well as to enable a better perception of drivers and maybe make it a little bit more welcoming for women. And, I've had a few people ask me that we maybe should do a show here in the future about some things from a female driver's perspective. So we'll look into that as well coming up here in the future weeks. But anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us once again here at the Counter of Knowledge. Stay tuned. We've got Tail Lights with Larry and Angie Baum coming up next. And then after that, we've got Anderson and Banker with Clutch Time Sports. So we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Stay tuned for more great programming. We'll see you here next week at the Counter of Knowledge on Keep On Talkin' Live. Talkin' Live.